I see a hand up, yes.
Who do you think is going to win the nomination?
Next question.
Do you think there's anything funny about Cubism?
No. Yes, there is a sense of humor about Cubism. There's also a sense of humor about my dog. Okay, so there's a spirit of fun about it, and I noticed this as I kind of reverse engineer things. You can look at a Cubist painting, and there are these areas of color, form, color, that have this sort of laser-cut, straight edge. They look like they could be puzzle pieces that you could pull in and rearrange. Pull in, push out, rearrange. But also, you notice subtleties that they become apparent only during the painting, because, like I mentioned before, that you look at the wood grain on the table, and the wood grain could kind of be interpreted as the fur on a wild beast. And then that relates to the story of Odysseus, the story of the Minotaur, perhaps, to Greek myth. So you have that, but also I noticed other things. I speculated that this knife, we don't know for sure if it really rests on the table or not, or if it's flying through the air. And I noticed that he has speed marks. The wood grain has been made in such a way that it could be read as speed marks coming off of the knife, like as in a cartoon, to show that it's moving. Other things I noticed too, like there's this repeating pattern that occurs in the wallpaper behind. And so you have pattern, 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 and then there's a break in the pattern where he does something just a little bit different. And something, it seems to begin to morph from one thing to another. So you go along, you see this pattern, and then suddenly, hey, you've got a clover leaf there that he's just kind of thrown in. And you go in and you say, hey, oh, that looks like he's putting a skull and crossbones in there. So little random things going on. Something I want to mention is he includes a guitar. Bach and Picasso both often included musical instruments in their Cubist compositions. And Bach was something of an accomplished musician himself. He was good enough that he could read sheet music. That tells you something. But if he's drawing from Greek myth and including that in here, then the guitar might also link into that in some way, because Homer was blind. Apparently, he wandered around Greece and told his stories to the accompaniment of a lyre, and lots of times people who were blind, that's how they found their livelihood, was through music. You can kind of refer to Ray Charles here, but for Homer to go through Greece and tell the history of Greece to the accompaniment of music, if you fast forward that several thousand years, you can kind of imagine Bob Dylan doing that. You know, he was on stage. He accompanied himself with a guitar. It was just him, no backup band in the early years. And he would tell stories of America, like the lonesome death of Hattie Carroll. So we have that. Now, is there anything else I was going to say? Oh, yes. There was this intermediate stage in Cubism. I talked about an early stage of Cubist painting called analytical. And then in the later part of Cubism, which this represents, there comes synthetic. Well, there was an intermediate stage, but it wasn't painting, so that's why it's not included. It was a collage phase where they would take elements of life and literally paste them onto the canvas. So newspapers would show up a lot. And then that was taken later on in the synthetic phase, and instead of actually pasting a piece of newsprint onto a backing, they would paint a newspaper onto the canvas. And there's a strong likelihood that John and Paul picked up on this when they went to the Liverpool Art College, because Picasso had a big influence on those guys. There goes my diamond. So they looked at how the one important artistic team of the 20th century went through their creative process, and they kind of applied the process of Bach and Picasso to Lennon and McCartney, turning it into music. The best example I can think of to illustrate is in the Sgt. Pepper album, where there were several occasions when John simply opened up a newspaper and he began to read from the newspaper, and these would become the lyrics for the song. This shows up in the song "The Day in the Life" that concluded the Sgt. Pepper album. Another thing was to take bits and pieces of material and collage them together. So, A Day in the Life, for example, the middle eighth section was most of the music was written by John, but there was a middle eighth section that was lacking, and Paul filled in with a bit of unfinished song they had written. 1, 2, 3.